Good morning. My name is Wally Kelly, and it's my privilege to serve as the Health Center Chaplain here at the Moorings. I welcome you this Tuesday morning, March 22nd, to Chaplain's Corner. I want to share something from the Gospel of John. It's a familiar story, chapter 5, verses 1 through 14. After this, there was a festival of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now in Jerusalem by the sheep gate there is a pool, called in Hebrew Bethesda, which has 5 porticos. In these lay many invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. One man was there who had been ill for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had been there a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no one to point me into the pool when the water is stirred up. And while I'm making my way, someone else steps down ahead of me." Jesus said to him, "Stand up, take your mat, and walk." At once the man was made well, and he took up his mat and began to walk. Now that day was a Sabbath. So the Jews said to the man who had been cured, "It is the Sabbath. It is not lawful for you to carry your mat." But he answered them, "The man who made me well said to me, 'Take up your mat and walk.'" They asked him, "Who is the man who said to you, 'Take it up and walk'?" Now the man who had been healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had disappeared in the crowd that was there. Later, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, "See, you have been made well. Do not sin anymore, so that nothing worse happens to you." The man went away and told the Jews that it was Jesus who made him well. Therefore the Jews started persecuting Jesus because he was doing such things on the Sabbath. But Jesus answered them, "My Father is still working, and I also am working." For this reason, the Jews were seeking all the more to kill him, because he was not only breaking the Sabbath, but was also calling God his own Father, therefore making himself equal to God. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. In John Claypool's inspiring book, Tracks of a Fellow Struggler, he penned a very moving phrase. His daughter died at a very young age of leukemia, and he describes being initiated into the fraternity of the sorrowing. In these strange, difficult days, I believe that many of us, along with a majority of people around the world, would agree too that we have joined those ranks on a level we never anticipated, the ranks of the sorrowing. One of the most perplexing things about the coronavirus is its utterly random, capricious behavior. It affects the old and young, the healthy and sick, doctors and patients, rich and poor. People that you think won't survive sometimes do, and people that you think are strong and healthy don't survive. We residents of modern Western civilization, who felt so invincible for so long, may interpret today's gospel story with just a bit more empathy and awareness because of our experience. The identity and site of this pool were established to the satisfaction of most scholars in 1888, when work was being done to repair Jerusalem's Church of St. Anne. An ancient reservoir was found in the ruins. In addition, there was a faded fresco on one of the old walls of the church that pictures an angel troubling the water. After a century, the Biblical Archaeological Society identified this pool as the one mentioned in John's Gospel. The sick man himself was an enigma. He declared that he had been there for 38 years. 38 years would have seemed long enough for most people. But this sad man, or 38 days would have been there long enough for most people. But this sad man had been there for a lifetime. What's more, the man didn't approach Jesus. Jesus approached him. To make matters more difficult, insightful commentators such as Fred Craddock and Will Willimon, invite us to take note that there's not one word in this passage about the sick man's faith, not one hint that he believed in Jesus or anything else except the magic water in the pool. You know, it's always seemed strange to me that Jesus asked the man, "Do you want to be healed?" I mean, who wouldn't want to be healed? The man had been there 38 years. It seems like such an obvious question. But then I think of some of the strange questions that I ask sometimes, or people ask me, like if you walk into the lobby at the moorings and someone says it's raining outside, and you're standing there pouring wet. It's obvious it's raining outside. Or the phone rings in the middle of the night and the caller asks, "I didn't wake you, did I?" Or how about this? I've asked this a few times myself. "Is there something wrong, officer?" Or another. You, along with 3 other people, are crawling on the floor searching for a contact lens. And as certain as sunrise, the next person who walks up says, "Did you lose something?" I guess we have all heard and asked our share of obvious questions at one time or another. And doesn't Jesus' question today sound like one of those questions? Just a little bit ludicrous. Do you want to be healed? He asked that question of a man who had been sick for 38 years. But I think there's more to the question than we perceive. Do we want to be healed, really? I mean, do we truly want to be rid of the unhealthy parts of our lives? Lisa Shinkins, who's a pastor in Texas, writes about a story in a book written by Marius von Sinden titled Space and Light, about the first people in the world to undergo successful cataract surgery. All of them had been blind for years. Suddenly, they received their sight. Their stories about the experience were wondrous and moving, but some were quite sad. They described the world the way a newborn baby or an alien might upon seeing everything for the first time. One newly sighted girl was shown some photographs and then some paintings by her mother. "Why do they put those dark marks all over them?" she asked. "Those aren't dark marks," her mother responded. "They are shadows." A second girl was so stunned by the radiance of the world that she kept her eyes shut for 2 weeks. When she finally opened them, she saw only a field of light against which everything seemed to be in motion. She could not distinguish objects, but gazed at everything around her, saying over and over again, "Oh God, how beautiful." But not everything was beautiful for these folks. Unable to judge distances, they reached out for things far away or cracked their shins on pieces of furniture they perceived as only patches of color. The world turned out to be bigger than they had thought, bigger and certainly more complex. Unable to control their feelings, many fell into depression, seeing themselves in a mirror for the first time. Some became terribly self-conscious about their appearance, while others refused to leave their homes at all. The distressed father of one young woman wrote to her surgeon that his daughter had taken to shutting her eyes when she walked around the house, that she seemed the happiest when she pretended to be blind again. A 15-year-old boy finally demanded to be taken back to the local home for the blind. "I can't stand it anymore," he said. "If things aren't altered, I will tear my eyes out." He wanted to tear his eyes out. After being rescued from a world of darkness and presented with a world of color, depth, movement, and marvelous sights. Why? Well, for some it was just too much to see, too much to do, too much to be. It was better before in the darkness, smaller, quieter, familiar, safer. Maybe this is why Jesus asked the sick man, and us as well, the penetrating question, do you want to be healed? This is a prayer composed by Reverend Bob Gibson of the London Conference of the United Church of Canada. Lord, you call us, wanderer of seashores and sidewalks, inviting us to sail out of our smug harbors into the uncharted waters of faith, to wander off from our predictable paths to follow you, into the unpredictable footsteps of the kingdom, to leave the comfort of our homes and accompany you into the uncomfortable neighborhoods we usually avoid. As we wait in our simple, sometimes crazy, constantly uncertain lives, speak to us, Spirit of grace, of that hope which is our anchor, of that peace which is our rock, of that grace which is our refuge. Amen. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.